Hi everybody, it's Chef Cleva, and on today's episode, we're making another stop on our Sweets Across the Nation tour. Today, we're making our stop in Kansas because I'm a little curious about dirt cake. So, let's get started. Alright guys, pen and paper, photograph memory time, because this is part one, the cookie part for your dirt cake. For your dirt cake cookie recipe, we're going to cheat just a little bit. You're going to need 1 box of chocolate cake mix, 2 eggs, 4 ounces of unsalted butter, and a pinch of salt. Alright guys, it's time to get your pen and paper and your photographic memory together because this is part 2, the filling for your dirt cake recipe. For your dirt cake filling, you're going to need 8 ounces of cream cheese, 4 ounces of unsalted butter, 4 ounces of powdered sugar, 3.5 cups of whole milk, 12 ounces of whipped topping, and 7 ounces of vanilla pudding mix. So first and foremost, where exactly did dirt cake come from? So the dirt cake is apparently supposed to be a spin-off of the Mississippi mud pie that was a popular dessert from the 60s, 1960s to be more specific. The dirt cake took the concept of laying chocolate cookie crumbles and pudding kind of like a trifle. It was first seen in the 1980s in the American Midwest, and it's mostly a dessert that is catered towards children. So other than the history of dirt cake, not for nothing, when I think about the state of Kansas, I mostly think about corn, tornadoes, and the Wizard of Oz.
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
This is from a girl who grew up in the city and would spend some summers in South Carolina where you would have a house and then you'd have like kind of like a mini forest and then you'd have another house. So I totally get it. When I think about the specific dessert, dirt cake, it's even listed in the history. It's a dessert that's mostly catered towards children. So when I think about dirt cake, I don't think about Kansas, I think about kids. And the first thing that comes to my mind are some funny stories about my very first job as a teenager when I used to work as a camp counselor at a Christian summer camp. Oh, this story is about a little boy. Mind you, I'm not gonna like alter his name or anything like that because it's not like a bad story. He was such a sweet kid, and I really, really hope that he turned into a nice adult because sometimes life happens, etc., etc. But the fact that he was such a genuinely nice kid, it's almost like you just really, really hope that he turned into a nice, genuinely sweet adult. So now you would think that growing up in Brooklyn, New York, that you are exposed to different people from different walks of life, which is true. But there are also little pockets, even in New York, where people will select what they expose themselves and their families to in terms of different walks of life. This little background is definitely important for this story. So the kid that I'm going to talk about, his name is Nathan Brown. And I'm pretty sure if you know me, if my friends are listening to this video, they definitely know this story because it is such a sweet and funny story. So the reason why I'm using his name is because it is important. So Nathan had, I don't know if you would call it like a speech thing or whatever the case may be, but he couldn't really pronounce his R's correctly. So instead of saying Nathan Brown, he would say Nathan Brown. So he would pronounce his R's almost like W's, I guess you could say, which for him at that age was extremely cute. And so he caught on that a lot of us camp counselors and teachers thought that it was adorable, so he would even introduce himself with his entire name, like full chest, because he just knew it was adorable, and he definitely played to that effect. Now for the specific story. So one of the jobs I had, was either to sit with the class or travel with the class. That was just basically, your job as a camp counselor. So this particular day, it was my job to watch the kids in the sprinklers. Make sure that everyone had sunblock, make sure that no one was roughhousing, everyone's being safe, which is, a big part of just any type of childcare, making sure that the kids are safe. Cool. So, I'm sitting on the bench watching the kids. I can see the entire yard from where I was sitting. Everybody's having a good time, screaming, blah, blah, blah. So all of a sudden, Nathan comes in and he sits down next to me on the bench. And it's the way he sat down next to me that I could already tell something was afoot. So I looked down and I was like, "Hey, Nathan, what's up?" And so then he says to me, "Miss Cleva, where are you from?" And I didn't think anything of it. So I answered him. I told him, "Oh, I was born and raised here in Brooklyn." He then asked me, where were my parents from? And I told him, I said, "Oh, they also were born and raised here in Brooklyn." And he paused, and I feel like he had specific questions for me. So the way he would just look up at the sky, almost like he's trying to word his questions properly, I just gave him a minute, let him cook. What, I don't know what this is about, but it's not like he's asking me anything crazy or out of the ordinary. So then Nathan goes on to ask me if I have a pool. And I told him, "No, I don't have a pool. I know how to swim, but I don't have a pool." Mind you, I'm trying to figure out now where are these questions coming from and where are these questions going. So then he asks me, do I go tanning? And I was like, "No, I don't go tanning at all." And he's really trying to figure out the answer to this question he has. So he finally just spits it out. And then he just asks me, he goes, "Miss Cleva, how come you have brown skin and I don't have brown skin?" And the way the record scratched in my brain, I did not know how to answer this question properly, only because I knew the answer, but this was a particular summer camp where you can tell the parents really wanted, I don't want to say a control over what their kids were exposed to, which is, any parent, but it's you just really had to be careful because these kids had a thing where if they learned something new, they would just run with it. And before the school day is over, they're telling every other kid every other thing, and then the kids telling the parents. Next you know, the parents are wondering, why is my kid learning this type of thing at this wholesome summer camp? So you really have to, that's pretty much with any kid, I would think, but you really got to pick and choose how you answer some of these kids, some of their questions. So I had to really choose my words carefully. Also, not for nothing, it was literally my first job, and I was not trying to mess it up. I wanted to come back because it was really a fun job. So after you asked me that question, I just thought about the best way to answer it, and I simply said, "Well, Nathan, I have brown skin because my parents have brown skin." And I figured that would be the end of the conversation. I was wrong. Nathan then wanted to know, and this was his question, "Can I have brown skin?" And I said, "No, I'm really sorry. You cannot have brown skin because your parents don't have brown skin. So unfortunately or fortunately, that's just the way it rolls." And once again, I'm thinking that is the end of the conversation. No, it was not. So once I pretty much understood where Nathan's train of thought was, I basically had to reassure him that there was absolutely nothing wrong with his skin, just like there was nothing wrong with mine. And I basically let him know that, his skin is for him and my skin is for me, and that's okay. And that even though he wants brown skin and can't have it, that doesn't mean that his skin is any less special than my skin. That's just the way, our parents have the skin that we have, and that's just the way it is. And I feel like once I reassured him that his skin was okay for him and my skin was okay for me, it seemed to put whatever issues he might have been going through at ease. But just the whole idea and the entire conversation, it just made me laugh, because it's the way kids interpret things and the way kids handle situations is just how, just how their brains work in general is just very refreshing in a weird way, but also comical. And as always, thank you so much for coming along with me on this dessert journey, and I hope you enjoy the story. Alright everybody, that is a wrap on our Dirt Cake episode, the dessert that represents Kansas. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, ring that bell so that way you are notified when we make our next stop on our Sweets Across the Nation tour. I'm Chef Cleva, and remember, everyone's a little curious. Bye!